Before we get into this story, let me set the scene for you, because what you're about to hear isn't just a sports story. It's a reckoning. An analyst sat down on national television, looked into the camera, and openly questioned whether Eala even belonged in the conversation. Not quietly, not carefully, publicly, dismissively, with the kind of confidence that comes from never expecting to be proven wrong. He was wrong. Because the very next morning, under the blazing Miami sun, a 19-year-old girl from Manila walked onto that court and didn't say a single word in response. She just played, and point by point, rally by rally, she dismantled every doubt that had ever been thrown in her direction. By the time she walked off, the same voices that questioned her were scrambling to explain what they had just witnessed. But here's what I need you to understand. This moment didn't come from nowhere. To truly feel the weight of what happened at the 2025 Miami Open, you have to go back. Way back. Not just to the start of a tournament, but to the start of a dream that most people never thought could survive. Eala grew up in Manila, Philippines. And if you know anything about Filipino sports culture, you know tennis isn't the religion there. Basketball is. Boxing is. Tennis belongs to other countries, other systems, other kids with different opportunities. But the Eala family didn't see the same walls everyone else saw. They saw a daughter with something rare, and they made a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. In 2018, Alex was 12 years old. 12. And instead of starting middle school close to home, she boarded a plane and flew halfway across the world to Manacor, Spain, to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy, one of the most elite, unforgiving tennis programs on the planet. Sit with that for a second. 12 years old, new country, new language, new culture, surrounded by the best young players in the world with zero guarantee that any of it would pay off. While her classmates back home were worried about weekend plans, she was learning how to compete, how to lose, and more importantly, how to get back up. That's not childhood. That's commitment. And it wasn't pretty every day. There were losses. That stung deep. There was loneliness that crept in during the quiet hours. There were moments where the dream must have felt impossibly far away. But she kept going, because somewhere along the way, this stopped being just about her. She was carrying something bigger. A dream that the Philippines had never sent to the world's biggest tennis stages, and she refused to let it die. Fast forward to 2022. Eala, 16 years old, wins the U.S. Open Junior Championship, one of the most prestigious titles in junior tennis. The tennis world finally looked up and said, "Okay, who is this?" But attention is a strange thing in sports. It arrives fast and leaves faster. By the time the 2025 Miami Open draw was announced, her name wasn't circled by analysts. It wasn't highlighted in previews. She entered as a wild card, ranked 137th in the world, and most people treated her presence as a polite gesture rather than a genuine threat. And look, that's not nothing to dismiss. The Miami Open is a WTA 1000 event, one step below a Grand Slam. The draw is stacked with players who've been at this level for years, veterans, champions, women who've seen every version of a young upstart before and know exactly how to shut it down. For a wild card ranked outside, the top 100 to make a real run here? You'd have to call it almost impossible. But Alex didn't get the memo. She won her opening match, then the next. Quietly, efficiently, no fanfare. At the ESPN desk, there was barely a reaction, because this is how it usually goes, right? Wild card goes on a feel-good run for 2 rounds, the crowd gets excited, and then the real competition steps in and restores order. Except the order never got restored. Then came Jelena Ostapenko, 2017 French Open champion. A player who doesn't ease into matches. She detonates from point 1. Her forehand is a weapon. Her mindset is relentless. On paper, this matchup wasn't supposed to be complicated. Alex won anyway, and then came March 26, 2025, Hard Rock Stadium. And across the net stood Iga Swiatek, world number 2, 5-time Grand Slam champion, the most dominant force in women's tennis for years. A player who had already lifted the Miami Open trophy. A player who had dropped just one set the entire tournament coming in. Sharp, locked in, playing in rhythm. This was supposed to be a formality. It wasn't. From the very first game, something felt wrong for Swiatek. Alex broke serve, then again, and this wasn't chaos. This wasn't a fluke run of luck. This was sustained, suffocating pressure from a teenager who played like she had been waiting for this exact moment her entire life. Swiatek, the player known for controlling every rally, for grinding opponents into submission, couldn't find her rhythm. Because Alex wasn't letting her breathe long enough to find it. Flat, aggressive, fearless, tennis that doesn't ask permission. And then it was over. The moment Alex struck that final point, the internet caught fire. Not just with celebration, but with receipts. Clips resurfaced within hours. The analyst questioning her legitimacy, pundits using 137 like it was a verdict. Every polite dismissal, every let's wait and see, every subtle message that she didn't quite belong yet, all of it came flooding back into the spotlight at once. Filipino fans had seen it all, and now they had proof. This wasn't just an upset. This was an answer. And it didn't echo through a stadium in Miami. It traveled across an ocean, all the way back to the Philippines, where over 100 million people were watching, feeling, and for the first time in a long time, being heard. What made the backlash hit harder than usual wasn't simply the doubt. Underdogs get doubted all the time. That's part of the game. It was how the doubt was packaged. That ranking, 137, had been wielded like a ceiling, as if a number on a list could tell you more about a player than what she was actually doing on the court. As if potential has a column in a spreadsheet somewhere. But here's the irony that hit everyone at once. That same number, the one used to dismiss her, became the number that made the story legendary. Because names like Iga Swiatek don't lose by accident. And the gap that ranking was supposed to represent simply did not exist on that court. The facts rewrote the narrative faster than the narrative could keep up. And through all of it, Eala hadn't changed. She was still the same girl from Manila. Still the kid who packed a bag at 12 and chased something most people told her was too far away. Still walking onto the court with quiet focus, whether the opponent is ranked 300 or number 1 in the world. No entitlement, no noise, just the work, just the belief. That never changed. The world just finally chose to pay attention, and even as that breakthrough echoed across the sport, the road kept going. Because tennis doesn't pause for your moment. The 2026 season came with its own lessons, tough losses, ranking math, a defeat to Karolina Muchova in the round of 16 that pushed things backward. Progress in this sport is never a straight line. It's a constant negotiation between where you are and where you're trying to go. But none of that erased what had already been done. Because when Eala defeated Iga Swiatek in Miami, she didn't just win a quarterfinal, she became the first player from the Philippines ever to reach the semifinals of a WTA 1000 event. In a country of more than 100 million people. No one had gone that far before. That's not a stat you skim past. That's a door opening for the first time in history, and you could see her carrying that. Not as a burden, but as a purpose. Every point in Miami meant something beyond the scoreboard. Every game was representation. Every set was proof that the path exists. That kids in Manila watching from living rooms across the archipelago could see themselves somewhere they had never been shown before. She wrote about it at the end of the season. My season has come to an end. I have no words to describe what 2025 has brought me. My dreams have come true. Everything that has happened this season is a love letter to my family, my team, and to little Alex. Little Alex. The 12-year-old with the backpack and the dream. The girl who sat with homesickness in a foreign country and refused to let it win. The junior Grand Slam champion. The wild card who walked into Miami and walked out as history. By 2026, she had climbed to a career-high ranking of world number 29. Not as a surprise. Not as an exception, as confirmation. Confirmation that Miami wasn't a fluke. It was a preview of what happens when years of invisible work finally meet the right moment under the right lights. And maybe the most powerful thing about her story is this. She never needed anyone to believe in her first. The work was happening whether the cameras were there or not. The courts were empty, but she showed up. The headlines didn't come, but she kept going. The doubters spoke loudly, and she responded quietly, in the only language that actually matters. By 2026, Eala wasn't a question mark anymore. She had become the answer.